You know, Donna Adelson, she must have really thought that she was going to spend her last years with her husband, Harvey, her two children, Charlie and Wendy, their kids, got the grandchildren there. And she must have really thought that she won. She was able to get Wendy, the two children, to come all the way down from Tallahassee in Miami to come and live with her, where she can continue controlling over Wendy's life. And you know what? All of that made possible with Dan Markel being dead. More than 10 years later, where is she now? One by one, each one fell like they were dominoes. The hitman, the girlfriend, her son, Charlie Adelson, being convicted last year, and then her finally trying to board a plane to Vietnam to, maybe try to escape with her husband, Harvey, and then being arrested. And now look at her. She's been sitting in jail for about a year, and her trial is happening next week. Now, we have a lot that we're going to have to cover because a lot of you guys might need a refresher about this case. Now, we know the core of it, but so much has gone on with this case because there's been so many other trials. There's been a web of other people involved. We got the jailhouse calls between Donna and Charlie while he was waiting to be tried and convicted as well afterwards. Not only that, but it seems like Donna might be pissed at Wendy for abandoning the family for everything that they've done for her. Donna Adelson is being charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The theory is that through her son, Charlie Adelson, they hired two hitmen, but not directly. It was through Charlie's at-the-time girlfriend, Catherine McBenoit. And how did she know these hitmen? Well, one of the guys was her baby daddy. The other one was the baby daddy's friend. It's like you're roping in the father of your children to be involved to kill and murder someone. What if he gets caught? What if your children doesn't have any dad to grow up with? And then going back to the Adelsons, think about those two children growing up and realizing that maybe your mother's side of the family was involved in murdering your father. It just seems like everyone was just so short-sighted. No one cared about these children. Everyone just cared about themselves. They only cared about what benefited them. And it's horrifying because Donna Adelson probably thought, well, the children, they don't need their dad. They have grandma. They have grandpa. They got the Adelsons. You don't need your dad to grow up with. More than 10 years ago, in July of 2014, Dan Markel was found slumped over in his Prius in the driveway of his house. The neighbor heard a loud bang, came out, and saw that Dan Markel was in distress. Apparently, he had a gunshot wound to his head. He went to the hospital, and he did not make it. Law enforcement was able to quickly locate Wendy Adelson. Now, if you guys haven't seen Wendy Adelson's interrogation, y'all need to watch it because watching it will just make you scream on the inside, maybe even on the outside as well. Because I think when we were watching the interview with you guys, I think I was, I was very, 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 very disturbed by Wendy's interrogation. Wendy strikes me as someone who is a bad liar, who is very uncomfortable with silence, and is the type of person who will continue blabbering on just to alleviate that anxiety that she has built up. Because while she was being questioned by the police, they were telling her, oh, you're not like a suspect, but, we got to get as much information as we can. We got to know what's going on.
I made my brother, his name is Charlie, the one I'm really close to, he makes a lot of jokes in bad taste, and it was a joke he made. He bought the TV for me this morning that got broken, and I was talking to him about whether it made sense to pay to fix it or whether I should get a new one, and it was always his joke that, like, he knew Danny treated me badly, and it was always his joke. He said, I looked into hiring a hitman, and it was cheaper to get you this TV, so instead I got you this TV.
This was roughly about 20 minutes into the police interview, and notice that her statement that she makes, it is loaded with so much information. Oh, the TV, that my brother bought for me this morning that broke, but it's fixed now. Yeah, my brother Charlie, Dan Markel always treated him really bad, but Charlie always made, it just seems like it's just pouring out of her because she can't help herself. She can't contain it.
My parents are, very angry towards him. But even when they're around my kids, they would never say a bad word about my kid's father. They're really, really careful about that.
And that's about 24 minutes. And Wendy's sitting there and she is spilling it. Also, the thing about Donna not saying bad things about Dan Markel to the children, that may be false because Dan Markel filed a protective order against Donna because he said that she was saying things to his children. Dad was trying to take her sunshines away from her. And some of you may be thinking that maybe Wendy is just trying to spill everything to see what sticks to law enforcement because she's doing whatever she can to help find the murderer of her children's father. But you see, with Wendy, a lot of really weird stuff happening with Wendy, especially in this interrogation. Now, I recommend you guys definitely watch Jeff Lacosse's interrogation. Jeff Lacoste was interviewed by police, and he was Wendy's boyfriend at the time. And then they broke up, and then Dan Markel was murdered. Jeff Lacoste actually met with Charlie Adelson, and Charlie bragged about how he was in touch with Cuban criminals. And not only that, but he said that Wendy told him that Charlie looked into hiring a hitman and that it would have been probably about maybe 15 or 50,000. But definitely check that out because we did react to that. Lots of information there. Now, Wendy, on the day of the murder, she was picked up by law enforcement at a restaurant. She was there with her friends. They were having a nice lunch. And Wendy, on the day of Dan Markel's murder, she also had an errand to run. She decided to go to the liquor store to pick up a bottle so she could bring it to her friend's lunch. However, the route that she takes to get there is a very interesting one because Wendy, she was actually at the crime scene. And you're probably thinking, wait, she was at the crime scene? I thought she didn't know about what happened. This is the route that she took. And I had to go through my old videos to find this. So Wendy's house is 3303 Aqua Ridge Way. Okay, you can see it's like all the way over here. Let me show you guys my mouse pointer. It's all the way right here. Wendy's destination was a restaurant called Mosaic. And see the red dotted lines? That would have been her route right there. Publix liquor store is right next to it, and she could have went to this route, pick up the liquor, and then went to Mosaic afterwards. However, and law enforcement, they actually did not catch this during the interrogation, but this is the route that she took. Look at this purple route down here. She went all the way down here to this ABC Wine and Spirits, all the way down there. And then she said that she tried making a turn into Trescott, but then she saw crime scene tape and she just assumed that maybe a tree fell or something. So she made a U-turn and went out of there and then went all the way up here to the restaurant. It's almost as if she knew that Dan Markel was going to be murdered. And then she maybe went there to confirm it for herself, wanted to see with her own eyes. But yeah, she made a mistake by saying that because that raised a lot of red flags for the rest of us. But like I said, there's a lot of inconsistencies with Wendy Adelson's statements and a lot of other issues with Wendy. Wendy filed for divorce on September 10, 2012. The divorce was later finalized by a marital settlement agreement on July 31st, 2013. Adelson and her brother, Wendy Adelson and her brother, Charles, as well as their parents, Harvey and Donna Adelson, were determined to have Wendy and the two Markel children relocated to South Florida where the Adelsons lived. Dan Markel objected to his ex-wife moving his children to South Florida, and on June 20, 2013, the judge formally denied with prejudice Wendy's motion for relocation with the children. Dan Markel was murdered about a year afterwards. But you see, after the court order, Donna Adelson was very adamant about having Wendy and her two children move to Miami, 6 hours away from their dad. She even tried to get Wendy to offer Dan Markel $1 million to allow this. So a third of it was going to be from her and her husband, Harvey, a third from Wendy, and a third from Charlie Adelson, the son. And when none of this worked, she even resorted to threatening to convert the grandchildren to Catholicism, knowing that Dan Markel was a devout Jewish man. It was learned that around the time of the murder, Catherine McBanwell was involved in a personal relationship with Charles Adelson. It was later confirmed by Catherine McBanwell that Charlie Adelson enlisted Catherine McBanwell, who then enlisted the father of her two children, Sigfredo Garcia, to carry out the murder. Garcia then enlisted Rivera's assistance. The only way that Catherine, Garcia, Rivera knew of Dan Markel and his relationship with the Adelson family was through Charlie Adelson, the brother. And to add more to the weirdness, Dan Markel's memorial service, the investigators, they talked to Donna Adelson, Harvey Adelson, Wendy's parents, and they agreed to, meet with investigators before they were to leave town and go back to Miami. The next day, investigators called Wendy, and when they told her that their investigator, well, all of a sudden, Wendy said that the call on her end was not good. She couldn't hear, and she hung up. 5 minutes afterwards, her attorney calls the investigator and said that Wendy is no longer, in Tallahassee. She's driving back down to Miami with her parents at the moment. So Donna, Harvey never even met with investigators. They dipped out of town. Not only that, Charlie, the brother, the one that's really close to Wendy, he didn't even bother to attend Dan's memorial service. And to put everything on top of that, A year after Dan Markel's murder, Wendy formally changed her children's last names from Markel back to Adelson. There's a lot of really weird things going on here, isn't there? On July 18, 2014, Markel left his home that morning and drove his 2 children to the daycare on the west side of Tallahassee. He went to the fitness center. When he arrived at the fitness center, the surveillance video showed that there was a silver or maybe a light green Toyota Prius following him around. The video captured the Prius in the parking lot where the driver moved the vehicle to a different parking position while Markel was in the building. No one ever exited the Prius. Now we got more surveillance videos showing the same Prius before and after the homicide, including following Markel into his neighborhood immediately prior to the shooting. They determined the Prius to be a 2006-2009 Toyota Prius with a silver pink color. The Prius had tinted windows, a sun pass transponder on the top center of the windshield, a missing tow hook cover on the front bumper, and also the black passenger side mirror was black. The suspect vehicle fit the description given by Markel's neighbor after he heard a gunshot, looked out the window, and then saw this Prius backing out of the victim's driveway. Wow, it's almost as if they should have made sure the car that they got was going to be something that didn't have some unique features. Florida Department of Transportation records for the Sun Pass on Alligator Alley, I-75 west of Fort Lauderdale on July 16 and 18, 2014 had 1 account listing as a Prius as a customer vehicle. The transponder activity was consistent with cell site data for the 2 hitmen, Rivera and Garcia. The SunPass accounts use the above transponder is a rental car company in North Miami, Florida, all the way down in Florida. And again, it's like about a 6 hours drive from Florida all the way to Tallahassee. Law enforcement obtained a rental contract. The customer was listed as Luis Rivera with a brother listed as Garcia. Both Garcia and Rivera met with Catherine Magbanua the night before departing for Tallahassee to commit the murder. Now, there's a lot of phone calls going back and forth the morning of the murder. This is between the 2 hitmen, between Catherine Magbanua. Magbanua would then call Charlie Adelson. Adelson would call his mother. Calls going back and forth with the mother, Wendy Adelson, and then the mother with Charlie Adelson. So we have lots of phone calls, lots of phone activity happening on the day of the murder. The 2 hitmen got back from the murder and then met with Catherine Magbanua afterwards. Catherine Magbanua then went over to Charlie Adelson's house. Magbanua stated that while at Charlie Adelson's residence, Charlie Adelson was armed and acting frantic. Charlie told his mother and father had just left his residence and left money that his mom had washed. Yes, literally washed. At Adelson's trial, Magbanua testified that the money she received was damp, moldy, consistent with being physically washed, and stapled into $1,000 checks. These people are just not very smart. Magbanua took a Xanax. She went to sleep. The next morning, she left and was told that the money was in the trunk of her car. Communication records in Charlie Adelson's iCloud shows Donna Adelson telling Charlie Adelson she was outside your house. Oh, there is something interesting about this one. So remember the outside your housing, okay? We're going to cover emotion coming up soon. At approximately 8:59 p.m. on July 18, 2014, again, the day of the murder. Cellular records for Donna Adelson and Harvey Adelson shows an arrival time at 1:25 a.m. in Orlando, Florida, leaving an approximate half an hour time block consistent with her being at Charlie's residence. Harvey and Donna traveled to Orlando for the evening and then on to Tallahassee the next morning because that's where Wendy is. Magbanua started receiving paychecks from the Adelson Institute of Aesthetics and Implant Dentistry. So this family, they were a family that had a dental practice. They were well known in the South Miami, Florida area. And, you know, Catherine Magbanua was receiving paychecks from them, but she never worked there. Why would she be receiving money from them? I think they try to say that like, oh, she came in on the weekends when no one would be around, no one saw her, and she cleaned. These paychecks started in September 2014, so a couple months after the murder, was consistent in the amount of $407.58. Like, ooh, let's sprinkle the 58 cents in there to make it seem like it's more legit. She received the paychecks every 2 weeks. Now, the checks, they continued on through April 2016. Catherine Magbanua received a significant amount of cash after Markel's murder. She deposited over $13,000 in cash in the following month following the murder. So in the 6 weeks following the homicide, she deposited more cash than she had ever deposited in the entire year leading up to the homicide. So yeah, something's looking very sus over there. Also, there was $56,000 in total. In total, there was $56,000 deposited in her account. Not only that, but they decided to give her Harvey's old ass crusty car, okay? Because this car was a 2001 Lexus LS430 sedan. Maybe it was in good condition, but I mean, come on. This woman literally got rid of the largest obstacle in your life, and you're going to give her this crusty 14-year-old car? Oh boy. Motor vehicle records indicate the vehicle was sold to McManuel for $1,700. In addition, McManuel received cash and numerous gifts from Charlie Adelson since Markel's murder. I think he even paid for her boob job as well. That's also a thing. On April 19, 2016. Oh, okay. So this is about almost 2 years. Nothing's really happening with Dan Markel's murders. There's like no one arrested yet. And so at this point, law enforcement, they're going to resort to other methods in order to get something going. Okay. They're going to do I think they call it the bump. So this is what happens in the bump. On April 19, 2016, an undercover agent made contact with Donna Adelson in reference to Markel's murder. Also, there is a body cam footage, or I think an audio of this. The guy that talked to Donna Adelson, he does sound like an undercover agent. I'm so surprised that she wasn't able to catch on to this. I mean, he sounded like he talked like a cop. They should have just hired someone that sounded more like, like street talk or something like that. Not this guy who's an undercover agent who literally talks like a cop. Okay, sorry, I'm digressing.
And I want to let you know that my brother, he's incarcerated. He helped your family with this problem you guys had up north. And we want to make sure that he's going through some rough times. And we want to make sure that he's taken care of.
The undercover agent provided a press release of Markel's murder, asked for $5,000, and provided a phone number at which he could be contacted. As a result of this contact, conversations were intercepted. So they did a wiretap on all their cell phones in order to get them to start talking about this whole murder thing and murder for hire scheme. And here's what they found. So Donna Adelson calls her son, Charlie, not law enforcement, but calls Charlie, asking him to meet her at about some paperwork that was hand delivered to her outside of her condo in South Beach. During this convo, Charlie inquired whether it involved him or others. Donna responded in a whisper, well, probably both of us. When Charles asked her to repeat herself, she stated, probably the two of us. And you probably have a general idea of what I'm talking about. When Charles inquired further, Donna said this was not something she wanted to discuss over the phone. A little too late for that, Donna. So we got some calls going back and forth. Charlie called and immediately told his mother, Donna, don't talk about things in the apartment or any place. He then asked if the person was black, white, Hispanic, to which Donna said that he was white. Charles said it sounds like something that needs the police. And this is what I'm thinking. If some guy came up to you and they're trying to blackmail you, why wouldn't you go to the police right away, especially if you have nothing to hide, if you weren't involved with the murders? Wouldn't you just be like, hey, I'm being blackmailed, and maybe the person that's blackmailing me, maybe they're involved with the murder of my son-in-law. Okay. Donna said she may have to, the police thing. Donna said she may have to, but wants to talk to him first. When Charles asked what the letter was about, Donna said, this TV is probably about 5. Where do we hear about the TV again? Remember, y'all, I told you guys, the TV that was fixed the day that Dan Markel was murdered. It was Wendy Adelson's TV that was being repaired at Best Buy, probably to give her a good alibi for that morning, right? Not only that, Charlie Adelson also said, oh, it'd be so much cheaper to buy you a TV than hire a hitman. Sorry, but this TV thing keeps popping up. The TV seems like code word for let's have Dan Markel murdered. Oh, I almost skipped over this. Donna also said they mentioned an ex-girlfriend, but not specifically which one. So Charlie's known as a guy that has a lot of girlfriends. And what's really weird is that when his mother gets this really weird blackmail letter about his brother-in-law being murdered, well, the first thing he does is calls Catherine McManuel. Why would you call Catherine, huh? Why not all your other ex-girlfriends? I wonder why. So Charlie calls Catherine after trying to reach her by phone unsuccessfully about an hour. Charlie explained the situation to Catherine as he understood it from his mother. Something regarding her son, something regarding his ex-girlfriend, the person's asking for some money. Charles tells Catherine that he is going to see his mom the next day to discuss the matter. There's some discussion of whether or not Catherine is the girlfriend referenced by the agent. Charles said that he thought his mother said the agent mentioned Catherine's name. He didn't, but he's not sure and will follow up with her if the situation does not involve her. But it does. Catherine decides to meet Charlie the next day. they were able to record a conversation between Charlie and Catherine McBanwell at the Dolce Vita restaurant. So this is like the infamous Dolce Vita recording. Now, I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'm going to read you guys the highlights. And dude, Charlie is just he's so fucking cringe, okay? Just so cringe. Just like hearing him talk and listen, he thinks he's like fucking Godfather or something. I don't know, like this untouchable rich boy Godfather driving Lamborghinis in fucking South Florida, Miami. And like, this guy's just so full of himself. Anyways, let's read. Charlie says, they had any evidence? We've already gone to the airport. Ha! Remember the airport thing too, okay, y'all? Remember the airport thing, because guess who tried to go to the airport to Vietnam? They may have approached my mom because my dad may be someone who is carrying a gun. You never know someone's carrying, you know? You don't want it to turn to a fucking shootout, you know? Someone comes to me, they better be ready to shoot, because I'm going to shoot him. Somebody comes up to me asking for me money right now? Yeah, and guess what? When the fucking police show up and there's a doctor and there's an oral surgeon standing there with a dead gang member in the fucking driveway, you're not going to come down too hard on me, and I'm not going to talk anyways. Charlie's like, look at me. And I think this is the Adelson mindset. I really do think that had it really come down to Catherine McBanwell, the two hitmen, trying to turn on, you know, the rich white people. The rich white people were like, no, we're fine. We are prestigious people in Florida. We are well known. We're upstanding fucking people, okay? We got a fucking dental practice. No one's going to come after me. They're not going to believe you over us. And I really think that's their mindset. But you know what? Joke's on them. Charlie says, this is what I want you to do. I want you to call up this person and say, I got a call from some friends of mine who say that you reach out to them. And you mentioned my name. Again, remember, he's talking to Catherine McManus, okay? And remember, protect your name recently. So what you're going to say is, I got a call from some friends of mine who said that you reached out and that you mentioned my name. Well, these people, they want to go to the police because they had nothing to do with what you're talking about. And frankly, I don't know what you're talking about. But then why would you insert yourself? Oh, gosh. But the name sounds familiar of who's incarcerated. So I'm going to give you something as charity, okay? Charity. To help the less fortunate. But do not contact these people again or they're going to go to the police. And let them know that you had to do everything in the world to prevent these people from going to the police because they don't know anything. I don't know anything. And that the name, it sounds familiar. And I'm just going to help you out this one time with some charity. Don't ever contact me, my friends, my family again, or we will go to the police. This is so convoluted. This entire thing that he's trying to get Catherine to say to, you know, because he's assuming that like, okay, well, in case this blackmail is real, let me make sure that these hitmen don't say nothing. So I'm going to have Catherine McBanwell talk to the hitmen again and make sure that ain't nobody trying to blackmail the Adelson family. When I'm reading this, I feel like I'm dealing with a toddler that's trying to come up with this lie that just sounds so ridiculous and stupid, and they're trying to like wiggle their way out of it. It's so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing. Ugh. Oh man, this is just getting really good. But I gotta get up and we're gonna do some pickleball, and I need to get off this chair because we've been here for a couple of hours. We'll be back and record tomorrow. Hello, new day. Okay, where were we? After the in-person meeting with Katie McBanwell, Charles called Donna back to report about his meeting. Oh yeah, she goes by Katie, but we've been calling her Catherine the dog. Charlie said he report back about the meeting and he's handling everything. Donna then called Charlie back sounding very concerned. On April 21st, 2016, calls were intercepted between Katie and Charlie, and they attempted to disguise their conversation using real estate references such as security, property posted incorrectly, and wrong tenants for rental property. So again, trying to speak in codes. Charles and his dad Harvey met for dinner later that night. Now, at this point, it was a whole shitstorm. After the bump has happened, it is a shitstorm between the Adelsons. It's a shitstorm between Catherine McBanwell and then also the hitman. So Catherine went back to Garcia, the one that she hired her baby father, were intercepted, having numerous arguments over the phone. The morning of April 21st, it appeared Catherine was trying to convince Garcia to figure out who the phone number belonged to and place the call himself. And they're trying to figure out, okay, who was this person? Are they working with the police or are they trying to blackmail us? Do they know something? In a heated exchange, Garcia said, I'm not making that fucking phone call. May 5th, Charlie arrives at the Icon. They agreed to meet at the pool area to discuss the text message. So they also sent a text message to Donna. They're trying to get a hold of her. Donna's ignoring, of course. This time, Harvey is present. Remember, Harvey, till this very day, has not been arrested yet. But I don't know if they will. I don't know if they have enough on him. This time, Harvey's present with Charles and Donna as they huddled in the corner area for privacy. There was no oral intercept captured due to the location they had of the conversation. Charles called Donna and they discussed paying $5,000. Charles advised the sooner they pay the money, the better. They discussed being nice but firm when the money is paid so the person knows that this is only a one-time payment. Donna ends up calling the agent back. At this point, she doesn't know it was an agent. And you know what? Donna makes this excuse saying that like, oh, you know what? My grandchildren had possession of my phone. Oh, I didn't know that you called. So Donna says that she was really stressed out about this and she took him very seriously. She said that she asked friends what to do. She denied knowing anything referenced by the agent concerning help provided by her agent's friend, Rivera. She then brought up the reward offered and suggested that, maybe you should seek that out instead. The agent reminded her that all he asked for was $5,000. Donna claimed she had nothing to do with the death of her ex-son-in-law and that she was left out of the loop. Now, the agent reminded her, this problem is not going to go away and that you did know Katie and you did know what was done. So Donna continued to deny everything. And at some point, she ends the conversation, was like, I'll call you back. But then she never did. Whew. All right. So it is a shitstorm here. Now, remember, the bump happened, I think it was on April 19th, about a little bit over a month later, May 25th. Sigfredo Garcia was arrested for his involvement in the case. He is the baby daddy of Katie. On June 28th, Luis Rivera was arrested. So one by one, people are getting arrested and the Adelsons must have thought, oh, the heat is coming on to them. Now, Rivera, he's going to start talking to law enforcement. He said that Garcia initially told him, hey, we're going to drive to Tallahassee for a high-end robbery, okay? And they're driving up there. And you know what? He realizes that it's actually not a robbery that they're doing. It's actually going to be murder. Apparently, there's this woman who wanted her ex-husband murdered. That way she can get custody of the two children, move to Miami. And Rivera's like, why are we doing this murder? Why don't we just rob the woman of the $100K? Yeah, good question. Why didn't they just do that instead? So they drive it to Tallahassee and they're following around, Dan Markel, and they decide to go back. They come back a month later, do the same thing. But now the thing is, this is the stupid thing. So they rent the Prius, and as the two of them are driving up to Tallahassee, I think it was Garcia, accidentally discharged the gun in the car. And at some point, their Prius, well, as you're driving it, it's starting to slow down and lose power. And it's because he shot through the fucking gas line. And so police, they go back and look at the Prius and they realize, oh, the gas line was spliced. And then there's a hole in the vehicle to confirm that this story was true. So they pull over to the side somewhere, they fix the gas line, and they go back to Tallahassee. At this point, we already know this part where they're following around Dan Markel as he's dropping his kids off at the daycare. He goes to the gym, he goes and pulls up into his home in the driveway, and that is when he is shot twice in the head by Garcia. So the two guys, they're done. They're not even going to try to stage a robbery or anything. They head back, drive all the way down to Miami. They discard their weapons over the bridge. Law enforcement was unable to recover that, unfortunately. But when they make it back the next day, they met up with Katie and they got paid. And you want to know how much they got paid for this? It was supposed to be $100K split between the three of them. $100K split between the three of them for murder. That's it. That's it. Maybe I'm just used to watching those movies where it's like, okay, we'll commit this murder and you're going to get $5 million insurance payout or something like that. But for $30K, and how did they get their payment? The $100 bills were stapled together into $1,000 denominations. So Charlie Adelson had a girlfriend during this undercover operation with the bump with Donna Adelson, and her name was June Umchinda. I think she's Thai. It sounds like a very Thai last name. When she was interviewed, she told law enforcement that she was following the news when all this stuff was happening. And when they found out the money was stapled together, she was like, that's kind of weird because Charlie, he also staples money as well. And not only that, Charlie also told June that apparently he had given a car to Catherine McBando. Remember that 2000 Lexus, the one that I kept calling the crusty? Maybe it was kept in good condition. Okay, I'm thinking crusty just in case, but maybe it was kept in good condition when they gave it to her. But like I said, if you're going to commit murder for someone or hire someone and do all this stuff, aren't you expecting like a Lamborghini or something, a BMW, Mercedes, not like a 14-year-old vehicle? I'm sorry. Okay, going back. What was I saying? Oh, not only that, June also said that Charlie helped finance Catherine's boob job. So Catherine got this 14-year-old car. She got a boob job. She got I think a total of $50,000 for taking care of this entire thing. That just doesn't seem like a lot to me. Charlie also had maybe a friend, and they had a falling out over financial stuff. But that person also said, yeah, Charlie would staple his money. It's as if Donna put in all this effort to wash the money physically, to have it be uniquely described by Charlie's actions of stapling the money. It's like, what's the point of washing the money if he's just going to staple it anyways, and it's going to be traced back to him from other people knowing that, oh, this is the type of thing that he does with cash. These people thought they were so smart, and you know, Charlie told the same person that you can get away with murder if you just keep your mouth shut. Well, look at it now. Look at what happened to Charlie. In October 2019, Garcia was tried and convicted. He was sentenced to life in prison. In April 2022, after the clarified audio, I think FBI had a hold of this audio and they were able to use their new technology to enhance it. That way they could really hear what Charlie was saying. Now, you guys remember this was the Dolce Vita meetup. So after Donna Adelson was given this letter, you know, essentially blackmailing her, she went to talk to Charlie, and then Charlie physically met with Katie at Dolce Vita. It was where, you know, he was being really cringy and telling her that, like, oh, do this, do that, and say this, say that. So this is the audio they were finally able to get and clarify. And you know what? He made a lot of incriminating statements. So Charlie was finally arrested for first-degree murder, solicitation to commit first-degree murder, and then conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Same thing as his mother, Donna, right now. In May of 2022, Catherine McBanno was tried and finally convicted. She was also sentenced to life in prison. I think Catherine McBanno initially had a hung jury for her first trial, if I remember correctly, and then they tried her again, and that's when they finally convicted her. So at this point, Charlie is sweating, okay? Because you know what? During Charlie's trial, guess who testified? Catherine fucking McBanno. She went up there and she testified. She said that, you know, the night of the murder, yeah, I went to Charlie's house and Donna was just there before I was. And yeah, the cash that I received, it was physically washed. And it's funny because Charlie's defense was like, you know, I didn't know about any of this. These people, they did it all on their own. They killed Dan Markel because they were trying to blackmail me and pin it on me.
Is it doctor?
It is, yes.
All right, doctor. Have you ever heard the saying that the simplest explanation is always the most likely? Have you heard that?
I've heard that theory before, yeah.
Sorry, I said blackmail, but I meant to say extort. And then Georgia Kappelman's like, you know, sometimes the simplest explanation is actually the explanation, because Charlie was trying to come up with this whole contrived plan that Catherine McBanno knew that he had cash in his safe. So she contacted these two guys to do the hitman thing, and then they were going to blackmail Charlie for the money. Wouldn't they just have went to Charlie directly and robbed him instead of murdering someone?
Who extorted you?
As I sit here today, I believe that it was Catherine McBanno, and I believe Sigfredo Garcia, but I don't know for sure. I was never there when she was ever talking to him, so I don't know if he was in on it with her or not.
All right. At the time, though, you did not think she was guilty. You got that right. The time of the extortion.
In 2014?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. And then so exactly when you found out would be, I think you said, her trial.
That I suspected that she was not telling me the truth and she was a part of it was in 2019.
At her trial?
Yes.
All right. And so she was arrested in 2016, right?
Yes.
All right. So for 3 years, she was in the Leon County Jail awaiting trial, yes?
She was there.
And you believed she was innocent?
Yes.
And you had this whole explanation to assist with exonerating her, right?
I have the truth of what happened, yes.
But you didn't offer the truth of what happened, did you?
Nobody came to me. I thought the truth would come out.
Does someone have to come to you?
I was told not to talk to Katie and not to talk to anybody about this case by counsel.
Or you sat there for 10 years and you're trying to make up a new story with the puzzle pieces that you already have and try to see if you can construct one that could be plausible, but it does sound like BS. This is from Pretty Lies and Alibis YouTube channel. Charlie really thought he did well in the testimony. The lawyer says he did really well, and to the point where Charlie actually thought, you know, he was gonna get out.
Like in sentencing, he said, if I were to give you a score, I think you'd get a 95. He said he was very happy with how I testified. You know, like my demeanor, my delivery, how I was like to the point, but like not, you know, elaborated on some stuff, was personable. Like he came across fantastic. Everybody, Bree was telling me, like, reading to me things that people were finally writing online about like positive things. Like finally, people are writing positive things about the case.
Yeah.
And I was literally like, I was on cloud nine over the weekend. I was like, I'm going to see my son. I'm going to get out. I'm going to go to see Scott. I'm going to go there.
This trial happened last year in October 2023. I remember because I wanted to stream it, but I had COVID for the first time. It was awful. Charlie Adelson was finally found guilty on all charges on November 6, 2023. Now, I do believe he is trying to appeal it, and that's still pending. But since then, his mother, Donna, had been arrested. Now, let's talk about the jailhouse calls because they are very interesting. The jailhouse calls from after the Charlie Adelson's guilty verdict include multiple calls in which Donna is telling Charlie that she's going to get things in order. She's going to start creating trust. She's going to make sure the grandchildren are taken care of. Okay, sounds fine. Donna discusses plans for suicide, but also discusses plans to flee to a non-extradition country. I wonder why. Is it because Donna thinks that one by one, everyone's going down, Charlie's going down, she's next possibly? Donna has considerable financial resources to accomplish this. Let's listen to some of the jailhouse calls. These are jailhouse calls after the verdict. I wonder if they just forgot that these jailhouse calls were recorded or what? Because, you know, sometimes judges, they be listening to the jailhouse calls when they're considering the sentencing.
Honestly, I'm like, I don't know if I'm in a state of shock.
Yeah, you're in shock. We're all in shock. Yeah. We're all in shock.
Here's Donna and Charlie talking crap about Georgia Kappelman in her closing argument and talking crap about the jury as well, saying that they're dummies. Because don't forget, these people are from the city. They're from Miami. The Tallahassee people, they're just dumb.
She dumbed it down and put in a bunch of lies, and it was like
She dummied it down. She dummied it down for a bunch of dummies, and it flew.
Yeah, and that's who was buying it, and she put on her Tallahassee show and put on some emails that were written by somebody else.
And it sounds like Donna Adelson talked to Dan Rashbaum. He represented Charlie and is also representing Donna right now, interestingly. But it seems like Donna wasn't sure if they can get out in time. Like, I don't know, listen to this call and let me know how you interpret this. Does it sound like they were trying to run away because they think they're going to get arrested soon?
They're going to make a decision at some point. So after speaking to Dan this morning and knowing what they're thinking up there, and I don't know if we'll make it out in time. I really don't. But Dan said, you might, or you might do all of this, get to the airport, and they'll stop us. And that could happen. It could happen. I don't know, but it's worth a try.
That's why I was like, did they forget that these calls are recorded and then people will be listening on them? About a week after Charlie was convicted, Donna Adelson, Harvey Adelson were at Miami International Airport. They were trying to board on a flight to Vietnam with a layover in Dubai. So law enforcement, they had to move really quickly and get this arrest warrant.
So why do I want to give it to you? Why do I have to give it to you? Why do I have to give it to you? This is evidence. She's under arrest. I have to go with you. I have to go. I have to go. I'm helping you. I have to stay. Please don't do this. Take the bags. Take the bags. Yeah. You need to wait out.
So how did law enforcement know that Harvey and Donna were planning to leave for Vietnam? It's because someone snitched on them. Someone snitched on the both of them, and I'm glad they did. On Monday, November 13, 2023, a friend of Charlie Adelson contacted the state's attorney office in Tallahassee. They advised that Donna Harvey contacted them on Sunday, November 12th regarding travel to the Philippines. The Adelsons advised they had travel plans to Saigon until November 20th, 2023, but no further plans at the time. The Adelsons were seeking advice for airlines as well as places to stay. This family friend has known the Adelson for over 10 years and has never had a longer than 5-minute conversation with Donna or Harvey. Oh gosh. They found the contact to be very strange. Harvey Adelson told the subject, "You must not mention to Charlie anything about our plans." This is Donna's first court appearance, and she is rolling her eyes.
November 29th, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good luck to you. That's it for that. Okay.
Now, I want to talk about this for a second. Donna hired a different attorney to represent her. However, a couple months after that, there was a motion for a substitution of counsel. So Marisol Descalzo, sorry if I butchered that, she's no longer representing Donna Adelson. Instead, Donna Adelson's going to have Daniel Rashbaum, the one who represented Charlie. Why? If he lost Charlie's case, why have him on again? I guess you want someone that's up to speed to everything. I don't know. But now what's interesting here, though, so Daniel Rashbaum is a Miami attorney, and they probably thought bringing in a Miami big city attorney to Tallahassee maybe not a good idea. Maybe it's good to bring in a local attorney who knows their people, knows their community better. So this time they also hired Robert Morris, who is in the Tallahassee area. So maybe Daniel Rashbaum is going to assist Mr. Morris into giving him up to speed to everything. I don't know. I just feel like if Mr. Rashbaum already lost the other case, maybe you just want a complete new set of eyes. But, we'll see what happens. I mean, Rashbaum was the one who told Charlie that he thought Charlie did really well with his testimonies. Now we're in August, and a slew of motions are filed by Donna and her defense team. Let's read the one with motion in limine. So these are the things that the defense team wants to have omitted during the trial. Number 1, testimony concerning the pre-arrest silence. During the 2019 trial of Catherine McManwell and Garcia, the state elicited testimony from investigator Craig Isom that at Professor Markel's July 2014 memorial service, he asked Mrs. Adelson if she and her husband would submit for a police interview. Now, y'all remember that they were like, yeah, sure. And then they skipped town. They even stayed to do an interview with investigators. And not only that, so did Wendy, and they never came back to Tallahassee. The defense says that this is an improper use of Ms. Adelson's pre-arrest silence under both Florida Constitution and Florida Evidence Code. However, it just looks really suspicious because after Dan Markel was found murdered, after the memorial service, Wendy left town with her parents. They never came back. They all moved to Miami, or Wendy moved to Miami. And then Donna and Harvey were supposed to talk to investigators, and they decided not to. Don't they want to find out who did this to the father of the 2 children? Number 2, wealth evidence. During the previous related trials, the state presented evidence through financial investigator Mary Hall regarding bank and investment accounts held by Mrs. Adelson and her husband, by Charles Adelson, and by their respective businesses. Such evidence has no relevance to the case at hand and is being introduced to inflame and prejudice the juror. Let's be clear. We do not dispute that the monies paid to Catherine McManwell, in the wake of Professor Markel's murder were in fact Charles Adelson's money. We also do not dispute that the Adelson Institute had sufficient funds to pay Catherine McManwell bi-monthly. As a result, the state's so-called wealth evidence bears no relevance in Mrs. Adelson's case. And again, they were paying Catherine McManwell a little bit, I think it was like weeks or a month after Dan Markel's murder, and she was getting paychecks twice a month when she was not working at the Adelson Institute. I think they tried to say that like, oh, she was working on the weekend, she was cleaning, no one saw her doing that. Yeah. Or are they just paying her for other reasons? Number 3, hearsay testimony from Jeffrey Lacoste. Jeffrey Lacoste, the former boyfriend of Wendy Adelson, has been called to testify on behalf of the state in each of the last 3 trials. In every trial, Lacoste claims that at various points during their relationship, Wendy made statements to him conveying statements that Charles Adelson purportedly made to her. Among other things, according to Lacoste, Wendy told him, 1, that Charles Adelson said that buying her a television was cheaper than a hitman. Number 2, that Charles Adelson said that he looked into the possibility of hiring a hitman to address the Markel problem. Number 3, that Charles Adelson described the dinner he and Wendy shared following Markel's murder as a celebration. Number 4, Charles Adelson said that he kept large amounts of cash in his home. These statements are hearsay within hearsay for which there is no exception under Florida law. Additionally, their admission, if Charles is unable to testify, would violate Ms. Adelson's Sixth Amendment right to confront and cross-examine under Crawford v. Washington. Number 4, testimony from Wendy Adelson. During Charles Adelson's trial, the state questioned Wendy Adelson about the characters and storyline of a fictional book that Wendy authored about human trafficking. Let me talk about this book really quick, because before Dan Markel was murdered, a couple years before, Wendy Adelson wrote this book. And, it seems like maybe she was writing the book about her, because it's about, Wendy is an attorney. And in the book, it centers around this attorney who, was really successful in DC. And she had to move to Florida to a made-up city called Hiawassee. Doesn't that sound like Tallahassee? And she hated it. But the reason why she had to move there was because her new husband wanted to move there. He was a professor. Kind of sounds like Dan Markel. And as the relationship is happening, she resents her husband. She does not like her husband. She even makes fun of his height. And at some point, the attorney decides to do pro bono work and work with victims of human trafficking. And so at the end of the book, she ends up adopting this, sorry, like spoiler alert if you're going to read it, but at the end of the book, she adopts this child from one of the women that was like trafficked, and she decides to take the child, not give the last name of her husband, but her own last name, and then she leaves the husband because she resented him so much, which kind of reminds me of Wendy moving to Tallahassee because Dan Markel was working there. She probably started resenting Dan Markel, and then also how she changed the last names of her children about a year after Dan Markel was murdered, and then she's in Miami. So it just seems like she was already writing what she wanted in her real life into this book. There's so many coincidences. 2, name changes of her children, like I mentioned, which happened about a year after Dan Markel was murdered. 3, Wendy's willingness to allow Professor Markel's parents to visit with her son since 2014. So get this, so fucked up. Wendy moved her children to Miami to be closer to her family, and Dan Markel's parents, they're dealing with grief. They're grieving that their son was murdered. They don't know who the murderers are. And for some reason, Wendy doesn't allow them to see their own grandchildren. I don't think they end up seeing the grandchildren until it was like just like a couple years ago. And again, this whole thing happened about 10 years ago. So, number 4, the Markel's successful efforts since 2014 to lobby for the amendment of Florida's grandparental visitation rights law. The substance of Wendy's fictional book, written years before Professor Markel's death, the name changes for children, the visitation decisions she may have made in the wake of Professor Markel's death, and legislation enacted in response to his death have no probative value to the only question this jury will be able to ask to decide Donna Adelson's guilt or innocence on the crimes charged. Number 5. The jailhouse recordings, which we already covered some of it. At the trial, the state will likely to introduce a recorded telephone conversation between Mrs. Adelson and Charlie Adelson while the latter was held at the Leon County Detention Center following his conviction last fall. Mr. Adelson, so Charlie's statements were highly inflammatory, posing a significant danger of unfair prejudice to Mrs. Adelson. I mean, Donna said a lot of things in there too, okay? Donna, don't just blame it all on Charlie. Number 6, autopsy photos. During the trial of Charlie Adelson, the state was permitted to introduce 10 separate exhibits, 2 X-ray images, and 8 photographs from Professor Markel's autopsy, along with 3 photographs of Professor Markel after the shooting, but before his passing at Tallahassee Memorial Hospital. The Florida Supreme Court has held that autopsy photos are admissible if they're relevant and not so shocking in nature as to defeat the value of their relevance. But to be relevant, a photo of the deceased victim must be probative of an issue that is in dispute. Here, Mrs. Adelson does not dispute the fact, means, or manner of Professor Markel's death. Accordingly, any probative value of the autopsy photos is substantially outweighed by their prejudicial effort. We ask that they be precluded. Yeah, because the jury is going to see it, and maybe they think that it's going to be so shocking for the jury, but it's like, if you're accused of murdering someone, this is what happened to them. This is what they look like. This is what they look like while they were dead. And they're like, oh no, we don't want to have these photos out there. We don't want the jury to see it. They also they put in a motion to suppress the wiretap evidence. Now, they acknowledge they already tried doing this in Charlie's trial and it was done unsuccessfully, but this is what they wrote. We fully appreciate this court denied a nearly identical pretrial motion to suppress in Charlie Adelson's case, and is unlikely to revisit its ruling here, but we strongly believe that the federal and Florida constitutional statutory baselines were not met. We therefore file this motion, if not more than to preserve the record. So they're already acknowledging, like, hey, I already know this is not going to be, you're probably not likely going to approve this, judge, but we're just going to file for the record anyways. Like, they already accepted defeat. All these motions that they're filing, it's happening about a little bit over a month before the trial starts. Another motion that Donna Adelson wanted, she wanted to be in a smaller courtroom for her trial. If you guys remember Charlie Adelson's trial, the videos look really good. The audio was really good. It seems like it was pretty like a nice sizable gallery in there. And here are the reasons why they said they wanted to be in a smaller courtroom. Probably because they wanted less people to be in the gallery and to actually be there in person. Number 5, in Mr. Adelson's case, for example, someone in the gallery took a photo of a note passed between Mr. Adelson and his counsel on the second day of jury selection and proceeded to post that note on social media. While the substance of that note was unrelatable to Mr. Adelson's case, the reporting in the media speculated about the note and its importance. Moreover, the fact that it was photographed and released for public consumption forced the defense counsel to modify how and when they communicated with Mr. Adelson during the trial. Number 6, even more significantly, later on in the proceedings during the cross-examination of an important government witness, one of the jurors stood up in the middle of the examination and signaled the court to stop the proceeding. After the court spoke with the juror, we came to learn that there was an individual in the gallery were making facial expressions and hand gestures towards the jury in an effort to convey opinions of the testimony. Yikes. Which were distracting at least the one juror who complained of the incident. Actions like this clearly affect the juror's ability to independently assess the testimony and thereby affect the defense's right to a fair and partial trial. Number 7, at several points the proceedings were interrupted where members of the public, contrary to the court's clear admonition, why did I read it like that? Sounds weird. Attempted surreptitiously to record the proceedings and failed to silence their cell phones. Let me just tell you this. The wiretap one, denied by the judge, and then this one, denied by the judge as well. They're going to do it in this normal courtroom, the larger one, not the smaller one. Oh, this next motion was gold. Donna Adelson wanted to have the case against her dismissed because they were like, the state, they waited way too long to come after me. It's been about 9 years? 9 years since Dan Markel was murdered. They're trying to come after me now? You guys should dismiss the case. And here's her explanation, and here are the reasons why they listed. Oh gosh. Defendant Donna Adelson's motion to dismiss indictment for pre-indictment delay or alternatively to exclude the evidence. So she would either wants to dismiss or to exclude the evidence, okay? The state made the intentional, strategic decision not to charge Mrs. Adelson for almost 8 years, instead choosing to pursue charges against the 4 of her purported co-conspirators first. When the state finally decided to seek an indictment against Mrs. Adelson, more than 9 years had passed since the murder. By that point, exculpatory documents critical to her defense that the state never saw fit to even obtain, including her cell phone records, to refute the state's call pattern claims, the SunPass records. If you guys don't know what a SunPass is, it's kind of like a little electronic thing that you can use to pay for the tolls on the highways. So this is I think it's called the SunPass in Florida. Depending on what state you're in, it's called different things. I think in California, is it the Easy Pass? Maybe. The SunPass records to refute the state's unsubstantiated and inaccurate suggestion of a money drop were lost to foreseeable document retention policies. So Donna's saying, because the state waited so long to come after me, there is some evidence out there that I could have gotten hold of to prove that, I didn't do this. I didn't do the money drop. I'm not doing, X, Y, and Z that the state is accusing me of doing. She's saying that these lost evidence could have been exculpatory, okay? Let's read this. State's analysts only included the cell phone activity between May 2014 and July 2014. Okay, so they analyzed the cell phone records of the Adelsons and maybe other people as well, but they were saying that the time period was only May 2014 and July 2014. Okay. The events had nothing to do with Dan Markel's murder. These earlier patterns were proof that whatever Mrs. Adelson's communications were around the time of the murder, they were part of a larger pattern of calls and text messages between a mother and her family, not a murder conspiracy. So they're trying to say, y'all took a small sample of 2 months or 3 months, but if you guys actually expand the sample out, you would realize that Donna actually calls her family this amount of times. She actually calls them a lot. It's not just during this time period where she was only calling this much because of a murder conspiracy. No, something like this, it's normal. Since Mrs. Adelson's indictment, we've attempted to gather those records, but they no longer exist. So they're trying to say that we could have expanded the search a little bit to show you that Donna always calls her family this much. The state will likely argue that on the night of Professor Markel was shot, Mrs. Adelson drove to Charlie Adelson's home for a money drop. Never mind that Charlie Adelson had previously acknowledged that the money paid to Miss McBenoit that night came from his bedroom safe. Yeah, that's because Donna gave you the money and then you probably put the money in the safe. Oh, gosh. They're attempting to bolster their guesswork through a single text message sent from Mrs. Adelson to Charles Adelson on July 18, 2014. Get this. What did that text message said? Donna Adelson texted Charlie around that time outside your house. So how are they going to explain that? They're going to say oh, she texted that, but then really she wasn't outside of the house. Then why would you be texting that? Once again, the state is wrong. Mrs. Adelson was never at her son's home that night. Instead, she and her husband were driving from Miami to Tallahassee to be with their daughter and grandsons in the wake of the shooting. So the state said that Donna and Harvey washed the money, or it was Donna who did it, dropped the money off at Charlie. That's when Catherine McBenoit came over. This is the night of Dan Markel's murder. Catherine McBenoit came over, slept over at Charlie's house, and Charlie gave her the money from the safe. It was hundreds of dollars bills stapled in thousands of dollars. and the money was washed, and assuming that then it was Donna that washed it, okay? So it's funny to me that, I don't know, I guess Donna just, I mean, come on, her attorneys should know better. It's like these lies, these attempted half-ass explanations. Who's gonna believe this? You must really think the jury's gonna be dumb. So how is she gonna explain that, saying that, oh, I texted him, I was outside your house, but really I wasn't? Records from Mrs. Adelson's SunPass transponder would easily prove that. But the SunPass records, okay. So the records for the SunPass, okay, so they're trying to say that, you know, the state of Florida, they never tried to secure the SunPass records of Donna Adelson. And because they didn't do that, now that it's been 9 years, those records no longer exist. If those records existed and we can obtain it, it would show that Donna, you know, she was actually on her way to Dan Markel's and she wasn't at Charlie's house. So it's funny because, like, they're saying that there's evidence out there that could exist to exculpate her, but we don't have it. So therefore, judge, please either dismiss this case or exclude the evidence against her. Okay, so they got the SunPass records for Sigfredo Garcia, but they didn't for Miss Adelson. They no longer have those records, which I said. Mrs. Adelson, okay, look at the audacity, had Miss Adelson been charged in a timely manner, she would have been able to obtain those records, which have ruled out any possibility that she stopped at Charlie Adelson's residence. Had she been charged in a timely manner? I'm sorry, they were still building a case against her. All right, what is this part? I wanted to read this part. It says, rather than proceeding against every member of the alleged conspiracy at once, the state sought separate, staggered indictments, betting that the earlier charged defendants would implicate Mrs. Adelson. I think it's a good job that they did that. They got to the hitman first, then Catherine McBanwell, and then slowly, everyone was just slowly turning on each other. And as each trial progressed, more information was uncovered to get the next bad guy, okay? Fairness dictates that the state should not be allowed to present call patterns and text evidence to a jury tasked with determining Mrs. Adelson's fate because of the state's own delay. Evidence that would refute the state's claim has been destroyed and is no longer available. But we don't know if those evidence would even exculpate her. Is that how, can I say, I know exculpation, but can we say exculpate? Correct, right? Okay, last one. And you know what? This one might be the cherry on top, I think. It might be. Defendant Donna Adelson's motion to preclude evidence of Donna Adelson's travel as conscience of guilt. Oh no, Donna was going to Vietnam, a non-extradition country, because she just wanted to go visit there. What are you talking about? She wasn't trying to skip out. You know, she wasn't trying to avoid getting arrested a week after her son was convicted. Those phone calls that she made talking about how she had to leave and she had enough time to leave. No, I don't know what you're talking about. All right, so this became even clearer after the Adelsons. Miss Adelson was a major target of the state's investigation. This became even clearer after the arrest of the others over the many years and the release to the public of the state's theory of the case, which put Mrs. Adelson at the center of the state's conspiracy theory. In all that time, Mrs. Adelson traveled all over the world, including the countries without extradition, and always returned. It was not after Charlie Adelson's conviction, November 2023, did the state arrest her upon boarding a flight to Dubai with its ultimate destination, Vietnam. Because of the time and manner of the travel, and as described below, this evidence should not be permitted as evidence of conscience of guilt. All right, so they're trying to say that she did not hide her travel. She applied for a visa with the State Department. She spoke about her travel openly with friends. A ticket was booked into her name at the local airport. She used her own passport. Indeed, her travel was open and notorious. And they're also saying that, like, well, Donna could have fled nearly a decade ago if she wanted to. So here's a couple things. Like I said, I mean, the jailhouse call shows that she's trying to skip town, okay? And that she was already kind of getting worried. Charlie was convicted. They thought he was going to be able to at least get a hung jury or maybe get, you know, sorry, not a hung jury, but they were hoping to get at least one juror on the stand that believed him. He really thought it was going to be acquitted. Addressing the, she could have fled nearly a decade ago. No, why would she flee a decade ago? Because a decade ago, she got what she wanted. Wendy, her two kids, came to live in Miami. They changed her last name, got rid of the Markel last name. They're Adelsons now. They thought they got away with it. The hitman, Catherine McBanwell, were arrested. And they probably thought, you know what? Since law enforcement never came after us, we must be good. Yeah, get those other people. Get the people who are like on the low part of the pyramid. You know, we're at the very top. They're not going to come after us. She probably really thought that she was going to be fine. And even if they were to come after her, she probably thought the wealth of money would have saved her. The attorneys would have saved her from getting convicted. That's why she didn't run away 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago. It was until she realized the reality that, oh shit, they got Charlie. He didn't get away with it. We're next. Oh God, my hair looks so jacked up right now. Okay, we're almost done. Let's do a little recap. So all the motions that Donna and her defense team that they filed about a little bit over a month before her trial starts. Let's see what got denied. The motion to suppress evidence derived from the wiretap, denied. Motion to a smaller courtroom, denied. The other motion regarding the conscience of guilt and her traveling, that one got denied. Let's read this one right here, where the big chunk one, where they wanted to dismiss the indictment or to at least exclude the evidence against her. Because I want to read what the judge's response to this is, and it is it is satisfying. Order denying motion to dismiss indictment for pre-indictment delay or alternatively to exclude evidence. This is what the judge writes. As an initial matter, the court finds that the defendant's motion to dismiss is untimely. However, the court will analyze the merits of the claim. Defendant failed to demonstrate substantial prejudice has resulted from her inability to procure certain records. Considering all other admissible evidence connecting the defendant, Donna Adelson, to the charged offenses, the court cannot conclude that the cell phone and the SunPass records, if preserved, would have been exculpatory per se. Defendant also failed to demonstrate the delay was a product of bad faith by the state. Moreover, Catherine McManus' testimony during Charlie Adelson's trial revealed new information that the state was not privy to. Because again, they were like, oh, why didn't the state just go after all of the defendants at the same time? Hitman, Catherine McManus, Charlie Adelson, Donna Adelson. It's because they were slowly building their case, okay? And as they were charging each one and convicting them in the trial and stuff like that, more information was coming out. The court concludes the delay did not violate fundamental conceptions of justice. Rather, any prejudice which defendant may have suffered is counterbalanced by the state's need to finish its investigation into the defendant's alleged involvement in the charged offenses. Oh, this is his reply to the defense, because the defense was like, well, as soon as they had probable cause, they should have just went after Donna Adelson. Here's what the judge writes. Prosecutors are under no duty to file charges as soon as probable cause exists. Sorry, he's citing a case law. But before they are satisfied, they will be able to establish a suspect's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think that's what they were going after with Donna Adelson, with Charlie Adelson. It's like, you know what? We might have probable cause, but let's really fucking hammer them. Let's wait until we have a good amount of evidence and then go after these people. The pre-indictment delay of 5 years was not caused by any law enforcement wrongdoing, but instead resulted from the multiple other leads and suspects that were pursued. Accordingly, defendant's motion to dismiss is denied in bold in caps. Exclusion. So remember, they were like, okay, well, if you can't dismiss the indictment, or if you can't dismiss the case, can you at least just exclude the evidence then? Here's what the judge writes. As an alternative relief to the dismissal, defendant seeks to preclude the state from introducing exhibits or testimony at trial that she cannot adequately refute because of the charging delay. The delay was like, I think the cell phone records, they can't get a hold of them anymore. The SunPass transponder data, they can't get a hold of that anymore. And then, was there another thing that I'm missing? There was something else, I think. Defendant failed to establish that the probative value of the evidence seeks to exclude is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice. Defendant will be able to cross-examine the state's witness to ameliorate any prejudice caused by the absence of records she claims are necessary to refute the state's theories. Now, regarding the statements that Charlie Adelson made to Wendy, because they're saying it's hearsay, and then the statements that Wendy made to Jeffrey Lacoste about, oh, Charlie said all this about hiring a hitman is, or buying TV is cheaper than hiring a hitman. So the judge has made his ruling on this. And, for those, some of them were granted, some of them were denied. It just depends on if the state will lay their foundation or not. They might let some of the hearsay statements in. For the jailhouse recordings, now the ruling is reserved because the judge needs to review the recordings and he'll make a decision about it. We still have new documents that are being uploaded to the court website. Now, the trial's going to start next week. I keep getting mixed answers. I don't know if they decide to do jury selection on Monday instead and then continue to Tuesday, and then the trial probably starts on the 18th, which is, I think, a Wednesday. Or I don't know if jury selection is just going to take one day. I'm not really quite sure, but we'll definitely are going to be there. I will definitely see you guys for this trial. Now, the question is, after Donna Adelson, if she gets convicted, who's next? Is it going to be Wendy? Well, I don't know. Listen to this jailhouse call where Donna might have implicated Wendy.
She was on the phone with Charlie and the jail call dropped. Donna was actually implicating her daughter Wendy in the murder of her ex-husband Dan Markel. Donna was reading from a text that Wendy had sent to her.
I am not guilty because I did not do anything wrong, and I was not involved in any way with Danny's death. Here she was.
Yes, you were. That is what Donna said. Yes, you were. She made this jailhouse call to Charlie. She thought the line had hung up, but the line was still recording. It recorded her reading these text messages between her and Wendy. And there's way more out there, but I just want to show you guys this tidbit. Now, in terms of whether or not they're going to go after Harvey, I do think that Harvey I do think he knew about this. Like, I for sure had to know about this, but I don't think his involvement was as much as Donna Adelson. I don't know if they have enough evidence to go after Harvey. Now, do I think Donna's going to turn on Wendy? Do I think Charlie's going to turn on Wendy? Donna, I don't think so, because Donna's already old. She's already lived her life, and, she probably cares about the grandchildren. And, Wendy has much more to live, right? What's the point of throwing Wendy down too and then having the grandchildren suffer without having their parents? Charlie, on the other hand, I don't know. I think Charlie probably knows a lot about whether or not Wendy was involved. Maybe at some point he'll change his mind and give information about Wendy. Because maybe he wants to look after himself, and maybe because, Charlie also got a kid as well. Charlie, I think at the time of conviction, he has like a 5-year-old. So I'm not saying they're going to give him, the conditions of letting him out, but maybe they'll make his sentencing, maybe his time in prison a little bit better. Thank you for watching. There's a lot of stuff to include in the recap, but I try to keep it as condensed as possible. But there's a lot out there about this case. Now, the trial is going to be next week. I'm going to be streaming it. Feel free to stop by, say hello, and thank you so much for watching. I'm going to go wash my hair now.